It's the Auburn Observer Podcast, Coach Hiring Edition. It would be Iron Bowl Recap Edition, but that became out of date like within a few hours of the game. A whole lot to get to here. Justin Ferguson joined by my co-pilot Dan Peck. Both of us back from Vegas. I've been back from Vegas. Dan just now getting back to Vegas. The two of us have combined to sleep for about like 3 hours and 45 minutes in the last 2 days. So we're ready to rock here, I think, on this show. How are we doing, Dan?
Ahoy, Justin. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling shockingly good considering the amount of sleep that I've gotten in the last 2 days or so. I had a blast in Las Vegas. Really appreciate Troy for helping me get out there, and also just didn't watch a ton of awesome college basketball and see some of the sights. Troy goes 2-0 in the Resorts World Classic to take that championship back to Alabama. So yeah, very exciting stuff there. Want to give a shout out to Wings 94.3 for letting us use the studio. We're back. We're back in the Wings 94.3 studio. We have jimmied the door open under the cover of night so that we can record this episode. Wings 94.3, your home for classic hits in the Auburn, Opelika area. Also your home for Auburn football, Auburn men's basketball, Auburn baseball, Tiger Talk, which I imagine they'll have some stuff to talk about these next couple episodes of Tiger Talk. All that on Wings 94.3. Plus, you can hear the Police. You can hear Electric Light Orchestra. You can hear Def Leppard. Lots of great stuff on Wings 94.3. We really appreciate that they let us use the studio.
All right, so Auburn has hired a new football coach. You're hearing this on Monday morning. The hire was made on Sunday morning after Auburn's, once again, another close loss in the Iron Bowl. Auburn goes 1-7 in SEC play this year. 6 of those games determined by a touchdown. The other one determined by 10 points.
How many games do you feel like you can describe, especially against high-quality opponents, where it's like, yeah, it was anyone's game for 3 quarters, and it was all the other team in the fourth quarter?
And I think the one that wasn't that, for the most part, was the Arkansas game, which Auburn ended up winning. It's just it was very much. This isn't a Iron Bowl recap because, again, that's out of date. It's a new era of Auburn football already. But yeah, I mean, I thought it was very, very telling that that season couldn't have ended another way in terms of just kind of how fitting it was, unfortunately, for Auburn. But I do think, Dan, the way it ended and this did not work out in terms of finishing the job, getting a win. DJ Durkin going 1-2 as an interim with the only one being against Mercer, losing to playoff potential teams in Vandy and Alabama. I'll
say it, 2 teams that should be in the college football playoff.
So all that is true, but I do think the Iron Bowl just really underscored, okay, this is the opportunity for Auburn to go in a different direction and try something new. DJ Durkin was a candidate to be the full-time head coach, but as we had said from the very beginning, Dan, it sounded like the preference was for John Cohen to go hire a sitting head coach. He had interviewed several throughout this process, and while Durkin was a candidate, and while I think, he wouldn't have won the job if he'd have won the Iron Bowl necessarily, it would have made an impact. The fact that you really didn't see anything different from Auburn these last few weeks under DJ Durkin, other than the offense scored some more points, that's kind of it. Made it make more sense that Auburn went with the plan that we had heard from all along, which was if DJ Durkin could stay at Auburn and be its defensive coordinator in 2026, great. That would be a good option for Auburn. But John Cohen, knowing what John Cohen was prioritizing in the search, they wanted to go and get a sitting head coach and get something different, something for this fan base to believe in new. We don't know if it's going to work or not with Alex Golesh, Dan, but it is going to be different, and it should be exciting. I think the tenor we've heard from Auburn fans on Sunday, no matter whether you were pro-Durkin, anti-Durkin, pro-Golesh, anti-Golesh, I think for the most part, it is, wow, this is different, this is new, and after 5 straight losing seasons, it's a good time to try something new.
You know, if Durkin had gotten this job, and I posted something on social media that got more attention than I realized it was going to get about DJ Durkin maybe being the candidate. Like my position was like a move to give Durkin the job on a permanent basis would have suggested that you indeed thought this team was really close to winning right now, to the point where, you know, as I said on social media, if DJ Durkin's the head coach in 2026, 5 or 6 wins is a disaster. Like it's the kind of thing that makes that move. It would make that move a mistake, and it would make it would. I think there would be pressure on John Cohen. Instead, by going and getting someone who is an outsider and has his own system that he's going to look to implement, I think that while it may not be a full tear down and rebuild, I think with Alex Golesh there's more reason to be patient about what this guy can do,
especially with the schedule Auburn's got next season.
And that's not to say like we'll just punt the next couple of years and we'll see you in 2028 when Alex Golesh is expected to compete. I don't think it's that. No. But I think that the timetable is different when you're bringing in an outsider and changing things to that degree than if you had decided this team is close enough to legitimacy that you can just go ahead and roll with a lot of the status quo. You know, run it back with the 2025 key pieces back in place. They're not running it back in 2026 when they're making Alex Golesh the head coach, and he's going to make whatever changes he's going to make to the program.
There's so many different directions we can go with this. I'm sure we'll be talking a lot of different angles. I do want to start with just kind of the resume,
who is Alex Golesh? I guess we start there.
Yeah, Alex Golesh is a head coach who has spent the last 3 seasons at South Florida. Real quick with him at South Florida, he got the South Florida job, and he's been there for 3 years. He went 23-15 overall and 14-10 in 3 seasons with the Bulls. Some of you may hear that and say, okay. I mean, what's the big deal there? Well, the big deal there is that South Florida in the 3 seasons before he got there won 4 games.
Yeah, 4 wins.
And I believe they only won 1 against an FBS team. Yep. It was the worst FBS program in the country in terms of the way they had played from really 2020, 2021, 2022.
It turns it's not just Willie Taggart. They go through a couple of coaches. Jeff Scott, right? Is
this is it goes bad.
Yeah, no, it's
Scott.
I mean it's a problem. Is Skip Holtz also at some point in the in there? Is it? Do I have that right or
maybe
it's? I mean they go through. They look for answers at South Florida. And eventually they find their guy.
But Skip Holtz was early. Okay. That was before Skip Holtz was at Louisiana Tech.
Okay, so I mean, but it was like, I know some folks might think of South Florida and be like, occasionally they're plugging. It was dire.
Yeah.
Before Alex Golesh was hired from Tennessee, and that's the other, right? I mean, we could talk about what he's done at South Florida, but like how he got that South Florida job was rolling with Josh Heupel through through a Tennessee rebuild that looks a lot like what Auburn's coach is going to need to accomplish when you think about what Tennessee was.
Supercharged, immediate impact offense rebuild, which I think Auburn needs. Here's the thing with Auburn. You're in a situation, if you're Auburn, where you need to produce on offense. I wrote about it. You can check it out at The Observer. I did a breakdown of the numbers, the X's and O's, kind of the personnel, the background of what you should expect from an Alex Golesh offense at Auburn, because he was the primary play caller at USF the last 3 seasons. He was the play caller. How about this? He was the play caller at Tennessee under Heupel, right? And I'll be interested to see if that continues at Auburn, if he still calls plays or what he ends up doing there.
I want to be clear, by the way. It was after Willie Taggart left South Florida, because Willie Taggart wins enough at South Florida to get the Oregon job.
Yes.
It feels like that was 30 years ago, but I mean, and now and since then, it was a really uneven decade until USF stabilized things by going and getting Alex Golesh.
Speaking of the decade, Auburn, the last decade in not even SP plus, EPA per play. So EPA, for those of you who don't know, is a measurement that weighs every play according to its context. For example, a 5-yard gain on 3rd and 10 is not as good as a 5-yard gain on 3rd and 1, et cetera, et cetera. Auburn's highest ranking in offensive EPA per play since 2014 was 41st in 2017. Since firing Gus Malzahn, they have been 75th, 91st, 84th, 85th, and 77th. They have been a bottom half FBS offense in terms of efficiency and production over the last several years since they got rid of Gus Malzahn, and even then it was kind of tailing off. Alex Golesh, he has been a part of offenses. 4 of his last 6 seasons as a college coach, his offenses have finished top 20 in EPA per play. The only 2 exceptions were his first 2 at USF. His first one at USF was pretty good, 35th in the country. Remember, he was inheriting a really tough spot. 2024 at USF, Byron Brown's hurt a good chunk of the year. They just have to grind it out, and it wasn't pretty statistically, but they ended up winning enough games, making a bowl game, winning in that bowl game. This season, they are 10th in the country in SP+, which is opponent adjusted. They are top 5 in the country in yards per play and points per game. This is one of the best offensive minds going in college football right now, to the point where I was talking to a few people today about this, and I cite one of them in my story that I put up on Sunday afternoon, Dan. There is a belief in Knoxville, a growing belief, that when Alex Golesh left Tennessee to go take the USF job, that took some of the sting out of the Josh Heupel offense, and that Tennessee, while they have been good these last 3 seasons, they're missing a little bit. Here's the big word: edge. That we heard that was the first thing that John Cohen was talking about. When you hear about Alex Golesh as a coach, you hear words like decisive, edge, moxie, just belief. Like, he's that kind of guy. And you've seen it at USF, where he inherits the worst FBS job in the country at that time and turns them into a winner. They're 9-3 this season. They're probably 1 game away from being in the playoff hunt this year. And he's a guy that I think is a lot of people are viewing as an up and comer in this sport. That maybe it's a little earlier than people expected for him to get an SEC head coaching job. But I think Auburn's banking on the fact that this guy's on the upswing, and he's doing a good bit of winning right now, with less resources, and Auburn could give him more, and they need a turnaround. And he's been a part of some turnarounds.
And I know some folks might hear what you're describing as, well, he's won at the mid-major level. Let's give him Auburn resources, and they might think of Brian Harsin, who was winning at the mid-major level, and the belief was you can give him Auburn resources.
They'll think of Billy Napier.
See, but here's the difference, I would say, between Harsin and Napier is the fact that Napier had a lot of major conference experience on his resume as well. With Harsin, I think a crucial difference between Harsin and Alex Golesh is the fact that Golesh was there for a Tennessee rebuild that, again, resembles – you think about what Tennessee was when Josh Heupel was hired.
Yeah.
And they had cycled through several promising coaches that just didn't end up being the right answer, and a Tennessee program that was proud, that thought of itself – they thought of themselves – as a top 5, top 6 program in the SEC. I don't know how much of the rest of the conference still viewed Tennessee as a top 5, top 6 program.
And they go hire Josh Heupel after. Heupel had one really, really good year earlier at UCF, but they were 6-4 when they hired him in that 2020 season. Great offense. It was a really, really good offense, and Golesh was the co-offense coordinator for that team. But
we said during at the very beginning of this search, we were saying Auburn, after when you fired a third coach in 5 or 6 seasons, it does become easy to compare that to what Tennessee went through in the 2010s. Nebraska's another one, and it's like the thought that once Josh Heupel got it turned around to an extent at Tennessee, and I would also point out, like, if there have been diminishing returns on the offense, they also lost their quarterback after spring practice was over in a very weird circumstance this year.
They were in the playoff last year.
They were in the playoff last year.
I think if you're Auburn, if you look at what Josh Heupel's done at Tennessee and said, you can have this, Auburn fans would be like, yeah, absolutely.
Oh, I think
take it and run.
You'd be a fool to sneeze at that when you think
and
about
so
what Auburn.
You go get his guy, his right hand guy, and a guy who goes to South Florida and proves that he can do that. At it wasn't a situation where he walked into a great spot. Like, all right, the difference, like Brian Harsin inherited a Boise State program that had been rolling. And he was part of it, but had been rolling under Chris Peterson. And let's be fair, it wasn't as good with Harsin as the head coach as it had been under Peterson. Now, that was a really high bar to clear. Meanwhile, you look at Alex Golesh, he walks into a 4-win team and immediately gets them. It was one of the biggest turnarounds ever. How quickly they were able to do it.
Similar to what Lane Kiffin did at FAU.
Yep.
Lane Kiffin shows up at an FAU program that has potential but had not been winning football games. He gets there that's how he got the Ole Miss job.
Yes.
Was winning. Yeah. I mean, success is an
and Lane had a lot of experience before that.
He did, but if you look at the recent track record of Lane Kiffin when he gets the Ole Miss job, it's success as an SEC coordinator and success as a mid-major head coach. I don't think Ole Miss was thinking about USC and Oakland when they hired Lane Kiffin. It was what he had done. It was what he had done in the previous 5 or 6 seasons.
Yeah.
And I think you look at Alex Golesh in the previous 5 or 6 seasons, and it's high level. It's success.
Oh, I mean, his 2 seasons at Tennessee, they're 2 of the best offenses in the country.
Right.
In fact, that second year at Tennessee, they had an argument to the best offense in America that year.
Yeah.
And this year they're a top 5 offense at USF, top 10 even if you adjust it for the strength of schedule, right?
So if you're of the opinion that Lane Kiffin should have been one of the primary candidates in 2019 or 2020 or 2021 to be Auburn's head coach, it's like you probably weren't going to be able to lure Lane Kiffin away from Ole Miss now, because what were you offering him compared to what he already had? And he ends up choosing the LSU job.
What a mess.
But instead, like if you're trying to project, well, who looks like they're on that path?
Yeah.
Alex Golesh. I mean,
and that's the thing. I had said this, like, look, we'll talk about him probably at some point in this. Jon Sumrall was Auburn's lead candidate for a while in the search, right? And Auburn made moves to try to lock down Jon Sumrall. And in the end, Florida swoops in when they realize they are not getting Lane Kiffin, and they move on and they put their attention to Sumrall. And Auburn goes back and forth trying to, here's the thing. There was talk of, Auburn lowballed Sumrall. Auburn forced DJ Durkin on Sumrall, and that's why he's at Florida. Look at the numbers. Reportedly, what's out right now, according to like 247, our friends at 247, Nathan King, Jason Caldwell, Chris Clemente, those guys. According to them, Golesh is on a 6-year contract at $7.4 million a year. That's pretty much identical to what Florida's given Sumrall. I think ultimately Jon Sumrall wanted to be at Florida over Auburn, and I get it. Like, it's a better job reputation-wise. You may feel like you have a higher ceiling there. It's Florida, even though I think Auburn and Florida recently are about the same program. He ultimately just decided he wanted to go to Florida, and now Auburn goes with Golesh instead, with a very similar situation. I think the thing there,
I'm
Sumrall.
stunned.
How about this? How about this? Sumrall and Golesh, I think, are very similar as former SEC coordinators. I would say Golesh did more in his time as coordinator in the SEC at Tennessee than what Sumrall did at Kentucky, Ole Miss, and those places. On the flip side, Sumrall had one more year of experience as a head coach. Had done a little more at Troy and at Tulane. Troy, he inherits a rough situation at Troy, flips them into championship contender. He walks into a Tulane job where Willie Fritz had that thing rolling as well and keeps it going. So I think there is a little bit of difference there.
The surprise with Sumrall, well, there's 2 of them. I mean, a couple of years ago, the thought that, like, I think folks thought when he left Troy, it was going to be for a bigger job than Tulane.
Yeah.
Right? They're thinking that, like, okay, well, you're going to jump. A lot of folks, Billy Napier, for example, jump from the Sun Belt to Eli Drinkwitz, go straight from the Sun Belt to the SEC. The thought that you have that stopover.
Now all the American coaches are jumping from the.
Yes, the thought that you have the stopover from the Sun Belt to the, and you stop over in the American. The other thing is, I just did not think in the aftermath of Billy Napier, I thought maybe
Florida wasn't going to do that.
I thought maybe Sumrall's
Look at that fan base does not seem very happy about that. And I don't know how much happier they would be with Golesh, but I do think it's kind of funny that it felt like Auburn and Florida hired each other's coaches, like the ideal candidates, or maybe what. And I think here's the thing. I think Auburn. I think Sumrall was a little more proven as a head coach, obviously at this level. I think Golesh was a little more proven as what he did as an assistant in the SEC. And then when you get there, it's just a matter of preference at this point. It's offense and defense for sure. The other thing with Golesh that I think I want a couple of things here, kind of more in just broad picture here. $7.4 million a year deal, 6 years reportedly. Win-based incentives that can rise up to $12 million. If Auburn makes the playoff, he's going to be paid like a playoff coach, which I think is the way to go. Don't offer that and promise that up front without seeing that in the, like, you're not hiring Lane Kiffin. You're hiring an up-and-comer. And if he earns it, let him go earn it. The word I had heard, Nathan King, 247 wrote this today, and I thought it was a really interesting piece. Hugh Freeze had a bonus in his contract for making a bowl game. Alex Golesh doesn't. Alex Golesh is, let's just win. And the word was, according to Nathan, was Golesh has kind of made it clear, yeah, making a bowl game is going to be the least of your concerns. Like, we are going to, like, you can pay me more when we win games beyond what the floor is, what the expectation is. And look, I think.
Yeah, the thought that win number 6 is what gets you. Is what
I
gets
think
you
here's
your
the, I
bonus.
think here's the thing with Golesh is that what you have here for Auburn with the schedule they've got next season, with we don't know what this roster is going to look like, this coaching staff's going to look like. It's a long way to go. This is day one of the offseason, and we got a lot of talking to do between now and then, now and the start of the season. Priority number one next season for Auburn is stop the losing season streak. Get to a bowl game, be a winning football program again, and build from there. Right? Period. And that's going to be the baseline. That's going to be the baseline next season. And then you build off of that. But yeah, I just think Golesh, you've got a guy like offense is what has been ailing you the most for the better part of the last decade. And you went out and got.
You cited my question to Cohen.
Correct.
In the story.
Correct. Because here's the thing. All right, let's talk. When Auburn first opened up, we were throwing around candidates. You mentioned Alex Golesh on this podcast, and I said, makes a lot of sense. I think he's kind of down the list, but makes a lot of sense. What happens in this search process for Auburn, right? Sumrall, their top target, ends up going elsewhere. We'll find out one day what happens, or maybe, with Eli Drinkwitz, Clark Lee. Those guys end up staying in good situations at Missouri and Vanderbilt. Brent Key, I guess, is just going to stay at Georgia Tech. Here's another one. Kenny Dillingham, a name I heard a lot more towards the end of last week. Sounds like he's ultimately just going to stay in place at Arizona State. Makes a lot of sense. He's an Arizona State guy.
I have theories on the two SEC coaches real quick. With Clark Lee, we talked to David Pascal every week on the drive. Pascal had been saying whenever we brought up Clark Lee as a candidate, and I know Clark Lee reportedly interviewed at a couple of places in the SEC. David Pascal made it sound like between the promises made from Vanderbilt to expand this program and the fact that it's a guy who's got deep ties to that university, he was extremely down on the idea that Clark Lee was actually desired to jump to a different SEC program. And he, suspected this would come out to a new contract. With Eli, I don't know if you could sell, like if LSU had missed out on Kiffin, and I like Eli Drinkwitz, and I believe, that kind of like.
I think it would have been an easier sell for Florida and Auburn.
But I think with Florida,
Auburn.
but with Florida, with Florida and LSU, like the thought that you would promised your fans the moon, seemingly. And it's like, I like Eli Drinkwitz. I think it would have been tough to pull the curtain and reveal that Eli Drinkwitz is the new guy and have the fan base not immediately.
And I think Drink would have worked out here, and I think it would have made a lot of sense. But going with the up-and-comer, going with a guy that I think is not leaving a good situation in the SEC, I think makes a lot of sense from where Auburn, wanted to be. But, yeah, I mean, you had mentioned him and quarterback development being a big thing. And, look, I thought that this is why Sumrall made a ton of sense. This is kind of why Clark Lee made a lot of sense in my head, too. Maybe Brent Key as well. Where it's like you went away from like the quarterback guru whisperer guy.
You thought that's what Freeze was.
And you thought that's what Harsin was. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of that Gus Malzahn had that track record as well. And so it was like, okay, maybe you go defense, maybe you go different, maybe you go line of scrimmage kind of guy. Here's the thing about Golesh is he's an offensive guy. He has never been a quarterback's coach in his career. Dan, what is Alex Golesh's background as a coach?
He was coaching at like the tight ends and the.
He was a tight ends coach for about a decade.
Yeah, he was.
He has the most Midwest Rust Belt football background you come. This dude was a student assistant at Ohio State. He came up at Toledo, Northern Illinois, Iowa State. There's his last year at Iowa State.
A lot of Big Ten people thought he was going to end up back in the Big Ten. I know the what Michigan State job was.
Penn State. What the heck's Penn State doing? Mm-hmm. He's with Matt Campbell at Iowa State. He's his recruiting coordinator and his tight ends coach for 4 years. All 4 of those cycles he was there, Iowa State signed their best. It was their 4 best classes they had ever signed. The other thing too is that his last year at Iowa State, their tight ends like put up like nearly 1,000 yards and like a ton of touchdowns, big time numbers. So when Josh Heupel hires him at UCF had been doing the Veer-and-Shoot. Like it is that Art Briles-ish kind of like that's kind of the foundation, but it's got run and shoot, it's got old air raid elements. It is spread the field and take this vertically and horizontally, stretch the defense to its absolute limit.
A lot of the same philosophies that like I know things changed between Scott Frost and Heupel at UCF, but a lot of that same personnel stayed, right?
Yeah,
like I mean, it was a lot of the same stuff that you saw.
Well, Heupel hires Golesh at UCF and immediately tight ends coach, co-offensive coordinator, and then now all of a sudden. And then he takes him to Tennessee with him. And you're still doing that veer and shoot stuff, but you're doing some smash mouth stuff with your tight end. Like this team at its core, this offense at its core, if you spread the field, these wide splits, and then you look in the box and say, oh, they only have this many guys and we have this many guys, we're going to run this rock. Because they run the ball consistently well. They play so fast. How about this?
This is South Florida.
And Tennessee.
Yeah, Tennessee.
The last 5 years of Josh Heupel, of Alex Golesh's coaching career, his offenses have finished second, and first in time between plays in college football. This is one of the fastest offenses in the country. And so
there's balance too, right? I mean,
I know run it and throw it.
When they mention, I know when he was introduced as the head coach at USF, the USF president or AD, I forget who makes this comment, that there were only a handful of offenses that averaged 200 plus through the air and 200 plus on the ground, and Tennessee had done it in both of the years that Golesh was there before jumping to USF.
USF is 9th in the country this season in passing yards per attempt and 6th in rushing yards per attempt. Byron Brown, their quarterback this year, who missed time last season, who's I believe still has eligibility if that's an option Auburn ends up going with or tries to get out of the portal. We'll see. One of the best quarterbacks in the country this year, 7th in the country in yards per attempt, 7th in quarterback rating. He also ran for 1,000 yards and double-digit touchdowns on top of the fact that
could he be the Cam Ward, John Mateer, like mid-major quarterback trying to make the jump to
could be.
Major
Could be.
Yeah.
I'm interested in him. I think Mestemaker is going to be that guy at North Texas. I mean, because he's leading the nation in passing as a freshman. But
Good call.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely Texas State's got a really good quarterback too this year. But yeah, it would make sense.
He's not going to make the jump to the Pac-12 with them. You don't think?
The Byron Brown is, and we'll see what Auburn ends up doing, because I think off the rip, I think this offense is perfect for Deuce Knight in the future. And you got to make that. You got to have those conversations. You got to make those pitches, right? I do think it would work for a guy like Ashton Daniels, who had said after the game that he wants to stay at Auburn. Byron Brown, you watch him play, his mechanics are funky, but like it gets results. And I think that's the thing with what Tennessee, what he did at Tennessee, what he did at UCF. I mean, just think about this. I wrote this in the story. His deep ball, like the offense is just get it downfield, man. You talk about stretching the field, and just the quarterback, the quarterback play that you got here. 2025 this season for South Florida, 32 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Last year was 16-10. They had to play different quarterbacks. Brown wasn't 100%. 2023, 27-11. Tennessee in 2021, Hendon Hooker and Joe Milton, 33 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. A year later, 38 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Back at UCF in 2020, Dylan Gabriel, remember him?
Yeah.
That was his breakout year. 32 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. A reminder, by the way, that Auburn's single season passing touchdown record is 30. And number 2 came last year with 27. So, like, the baseline with what you've had through the air with Alex Golesh offenses has been what would be some of the best that Auburn's ever had. You got to get it to translate here, but it happened at Tennessee.
And it's not like Milton or Hooker have gone on to light the NFL on fire either. I mean, if they were, then you'd maybe have that suspicion of, did he catch lightning in a bottle with a superstar quarterback? They were both very good college quarterbacks. I mean, Dylan Gabriel.
And he was and Dylan Gabriel was a really good college quarterback. And he was the tight ends coach when Brock Purdy was at Iowa State, which I think, that's a good little crossover. But the deep ball passing, I mean, Hendon Hooker was the best deep ball passer in the country his 2 years at Tennessee. Joe Milton obviously could do that really well. Dylan Gabriel was great at it. Byron Brown this year, 30 of 58 on deep balls, which is a crazy high completion percentage. 1,200 yards, 10 touchdowns, just 1 interception. PFF has him down for a 94 grade on deep passes this year. That is elite. And they spread the field, right? You read some of the numbers for their receivers. It's like this season at USF, he's got 4 different receivers with 450 yards, including an 800-yard receiver. He had a 1,200-yard receiver at Tennessee. He had a 1,000-yard receiver at Tennessee. He had another 1,000-yard receiver at UCF. His early seasons at USF, it was just 5 or 6 guys just making plays. There's a lot of mouths to feed in this offense, but they find a way to get it done. On top of the fact that, by the way, they run the ball well. And in most of his years as a play caller, an offensive play caller at this level, Alex Golesh has had running attacks with 2-3 running backs producing every single game, and usually a quarterback who can move as well.
I would say if you looked at why it worked from going from Jeremy Pruitt to Josh Heupel at Tennessee, if you look at, I mean, it's a different deal, but if you look at why it worked, because Matt Luke was largely an extension of Hugh Freeze, right, at Ole Miss. Like that was still, it was an interim situation where he kept the job for another year or two. It's like if you look at moving on from Hugh Freeze to Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss, you look at why those what those new coaches had. Seems like Alex Golesh has a lot of that on his resume and in his and recent success that you can point to and say, well, this is what he's doing. And here's, I mean, you mentioned it in a recent, maybe it was in the piece about Alex Golesh, where it's like, you didn't have that recent success with Hugh Freeze that you could point to at Liberty to say, well, this is what he does, and this is why it's gonna work in the SEC. You could say that about Josh Heupel when he got there, and you could say that about Lane Kiffin when he made the jump from FAU to Ole Miss. And with Alex Golesh, I mean, yes, there's an exchange rate, there's a currency going from the American to the SEC as far as what will work and what won't. But you look at some of these philosophies, and I absolutely follow the argument that if he's able to instill this at a place that was struggling the way USF was, given Auburn's resources, given all the reasons that you think the next coach at Auburn was going to have an opportunity to succeed, no matter who it was, if it was Sumrall, if it was Durkin, if it's Alex Golesh, like if you thought the next guy was going to have a reason to succeed, going to have was going to have the opportunity to succeed, then yeah, I mean, I think it does seem to fit a familiar, you call it a formula, right? But like it seems like it goes along with some other recent very successful hires in the SEC.
100%. By the way, South Florida's offense 15th in the country in EPA per play. That's what they're inheriting from, that's what Alex Golesh has done walking into the Auburn job. Hugh Freeze's last Liberty offense was 97th. So it's not quite the same comparison. I know you want to play that.
Well, with Freeze, you were like talking about.
Freeze, it was, what did he do a decade ago at Ole Miss? Not what was he doing currently at Liberty. That wasn't as big of a deal, right? In terms of statistically, it wasn't as big of a deal. The other thing I think is really interesting about Alex Golesh that I'm fascinated to see how it plays out. It'll have to be early on and then continue moving forward, of course. He's got a reputation for being a grinder on the recruiting trail. Like I said, he was a recruiting coordinator at Iowa State. They had their 4 best recruiting classes when he was there at the time. It was their 4 best recruiting classes. His first big job as a position coach was at Toledo. They signed the Max #1 class back-to-back years at Toledo. He was involved in recruiting at Tennessee and helping improve that roster to take that step forward. And then his 2 full cycles at South Florida, they signed the #1 class in the American. So it's like, there are questions about how is this going to translate, I don't think if you've got your like Brian Harsin group of 5 alarm bells on, especially knowing that what you just came from. Look, number one, the recruiting thing is important, but we just saw it wasn't the be all end all. It can't be. You got to win games. You got to coach. You got to win games. And then number 2, this dude has a track record at different stops of being a really good recruiter. Brian Harsin, that was not Boise State's way. Boise State was just, we take the guys whoever want to be here, and we're going to be our, and that just did not work at all.
Which is why we thought like if Brian Harsin had spent, I know he was at Texas for a year, but it's like the thought that like if Harsin had spent a lot of time around different parts of the league, maybe that philosophy would have changed before arriving at Auburn. And with Golesh, you have a track record of he's been a recruiter, and he's got, like, to me that's a separator when you're talking about mid-major coaches, right? If it's like if they've never been in an environment where you need to recruit like a national champion to compete, it's a huge adjustment to come to the SEC and suddenly say, all right, well, what you
and I would also just say I think it works and translates if you've shown that you've been able to recruit and work where you are, right? Like, the fact that he signed really good classes in the MAC and the American shouldn't be overlooked. But yes, he does have experience coming at Tennessee,
where he's been in some situations.
Guys seem to really like him.
Yes,
like the national recruiting analyst I've seen throughout the day being like, this dude's going to work on the trail, and like, yes, he's going to have to get, like, he doesn't have the name recognition of some of these guys, but like I would also argue how much name recognition did Hugh Freeze really have around here with high school guys? It was more of, no, you worked hard at it and you had the money and you had the resources.
What cachet did the name Josh Heupel have when Tennessee brought him in from UCF?
What cachet does the name Mike Elko have at A&M?
Sure.
Right? And I've continued to go back to the Elko example. So it'll be really, really interesting. Staff-wise, the word is that Kodi Burns is going to come back to Auburn. He was, for those of you who don't know, he was Golesh's assistant head coach, co-offense coordinator, wide receivers coach this past season after spending time with the New Orleans Saints. He obviously worked with him at Tennessee. So I have it on really, really good authority that Kodi Burns is going to be there. Kodi Burns was in Auburn today. You can see him in the background of the videos that they posted. He's here.
Was he on the plane?
I mean, maybe.
He might have been on the plane.
He might have been on the plane. So Kodi Burns coming back. Also reportedly making the move over the offensive line coach, the offensive coordinator / quarterbacks coach, the cornerbacks coach, and the strength and conditioning coach from USF. This makes sense. You make that translation, right? You make that transition. You bring some of the guys that have helped you be successful, and then you fill it out with the rest. Let's talk DJ Durkin. From everything I've been able to gather over the last 12 hours or so, and going beyond that, Auburn would like to keep DJ Durkin as its defensive coordinator. I think this is something that was talked about with Alex Golesh in the process, and I think Alex Golesh is open to it. I think ultimately it might be a decision where Durkin's got to make the call that, okay, I didn't get the head coaching job, but do you want to stay here? Auburn was openly, John Cohen was openly talking about during the process how they wanted to keep Durkin retained as the defense coordinator if he wasn't the head coach. This is not going to come as a surprise to anybody. I don't know if it necessarily scared anybody off of this Auburn job. There may have been some kind of squirreliness about it at different points in the process.
I can understand why, and I know Jon Sumrall is not a defensive coordinator by trade, but if Jon Sumrall wanted to put his imprint on the defense, the idea that the current interim coach and the defensive coordinator from the last 2 years needed to be there too, I could understand why that would cause a little queasiness, because it's like, well, I mean, what happens if players start taking sides, especially players that were on the last couple of part of the last couple of teams?
It would have been a tougher transition. It would have been a tougher mesh. I think it's easier in this case where you have an offensive guy walking into a place where, again, for DJ Durkin, look, Auburn's defense played pretty well against Alabama. There were 3 drives that really killed them, including that last one. We're not going to rehash that whole game because, again, it's old news at this point. But, for the most part, this defense finished one of the top half defenses in the SEC. They covered in this past game. That was an area where I think.
How many of those close games Auburn played in 25 were close in the fourth quarter because the Auburn defense had given them a fighting chance?
Auburn's defense did not get enough stops late in those games. Missouri, Oklahoma, Alabama.
You could also say Auburn's offense didn't score enough points in the first 3 quarters.
That was the bigger problem. That was the bigger problem. And you saw that also again in the Iron Bowl.
Yes, you did.
So it makes sense. DJ Durkin is on one of the bigger contracts in college football for defense coordinators. There has been talk and there has been belief that he wanted to stay at Auburn. Now, that's going to be something to be worked out. Everybody and their brother was asking today, is he keeping Durkin? Is he keeping Durkin? Guess what? You're probably not going to know before Monday at the earliest, just with the guy. That will be addressed tomorrow, 100%. The word was that he was meeting with Durkin today and seeing what that process would look like. There was talk among coaching circles, the chatter, that Lane Kiffin going to LSU could open the door for Durkin to go with him to LSU. However, reportedly on Sunday afternoon, it sounds like Blake Baker, who did a really good job as the defense coordinator at LSU this year, is somebody that Lane Kiffin is interested in retaining because he took, if I remember correctly, all of Ole Miss's offensive staff hostage in the standoff and took them with him in the airport. So the defensive staff might be a little different.
Yeah, it's hard.
Pete Golding obviously is now the new head coach at Ole Miss.
It's hard to tell exactly who's who in those videos where the frat guys are heckling them and giving them the double birds. But it did seem like Charlie Weiss Jr. was one of the by the way, former USF offensive coordinator Charlie Weiss Jr. I think he was on the
USF or FAU.
He was at
FAU. I know,
but I think he worked for Jeff Scott. I believe Weiss Jr. came over before Ole Miss hired him. I believe Weiss Jr. was at least for one season was Scott's.
No.
Is that not right?
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, he was there for a little while. But yeah, I think Weiss Jr. did among the other offensive staff, which should make that playoff game that Ole Miss is presumably in a couple of weeks even more interesting. But yeah, I believe the offensive staff has gone to Baton Rouge.
Yeah, so I could see Auburn keeping
what a weekend.
Yeah, I could see Auburn keeping Durkin and guys on the staff on the defensive side. There could be some room for some offensive guys as well. I think it'll be a transition. I think there might be some outside hires. The 247 reporting that Golesh has told players you're going to know your position coach pretty quickly. They want to have this staff. That's the other thing too to keep in mind. Golesh is going to be here. He's here. There's no Florida's going to let Sumrall play out the string with Tulane, whether that's they make it to the playoff or not. This is the same thing that Oklahoma State's doing with Eric Morris from North Texas. I have heard that it was more of a sticking point for Auburn to go ahead and have their guy in place now. And so you're going to avoid that. And he's going to be here. He's going to be here this week for early sign-in period. The transfer portal window opens in January, and he's going to be able to go full blast into that, and we will see who comes and goes for Auburn in that process. And obviously the staff is going to be something that they want it to come together quickly because they want to go ahead and get moving on this roster. I'm
glad you mentioned the portal window because I know there's some confusion out there. I know Nathan put out the tweet that folks are some folks. I know there's the old rule that when your coach got fired, you had the opportunity to hit the portal immediately, and there was the old portal window which opened earlier in December. Alex Golesh is going to have a lot of time to make his pitch to guys before the portal window opens. Now, look, may not keep everyone. I mean, these guys
won't keep everyone,
right? I mean,
keep everyone.
These guys, no one on the roster.
It was funny. They did take a picture of him meeting with Keldrick Falk, and it was just that guy's not going to be here. Yeah. But cool. It was good that he was hanging. Good he went to the team meeting, man. Because until he's officially in the NFL draft, he's still a member of Auburn's football team. It was cool that he got a chance to meet Keldrick Falk before Keldrick Falk got to see the big 15 chain.
Yeah, got to meet Keldrick at least. But no, I mean the thought that and again, this is not he's not the coach that these players signed up to play for. So they, some of them may decide to go.
And we had said from the beginning, look, if Auburn loses big players, key players, guys that you'd like to have over the next month or two, roster retention is a bonus. It is not the priority. It is not the priority especially from a team that has. Look, again, it's what I was saying with this whole time. You can't joke about how Hugh Freeze said this team was close and we're tired of close and all that. And they'd be well, let's keep everything the same as much as possible because we are close, ?
And
you want to keep as many players as you want possible. That's going to be the main goal. But some of that's just going to be the cost of doing business with your transition. This is a multi-year decision. They gave him a 6-year deal. This is a big picture vision into the future move. This is a move that lasts for years, not just 1 year. The 2026 roster is going to be important, but that is low on the list of priorities for Auburn, and it should be. They had to get their guy, and they got it, and we will see what comes out of it on the other side. But any personnel decisions, whether with staff or whatever, can't be in the lens of, okay, who's going to play football for this team next season? That's just too short-sighted.
And of the guys who have shown themselves to be high-level college football players or potentially high-level college football players like freshmen and sophomores, if they leave, it's not because Auburn hired Alex Golesh. It's because of how Auburn played the last 2 years. That's why they're leaving, and so that's why you're having a rebuild right now. And so I understand yes, it.
And I don't think it's a tear it down to the studs type of rebuild, obviously, but it is real. And look, is it the worst thing in the world that Auburn's rebuilding? They've had losing seasons 5 straight years.
More than
this
half.
can be a talented team that still just underachieves, and you need to let your coach come in and figure out what he thinks is the best scenario. But I will say, part of what made Alex Golesh this job attractive to him and other guys who interviewed in the cycle was I know I'm not going to lose everybody if I come here. And boy, the setup's nice. You may be able to inherit some guys. And like we said the last few weeks, you ain't losing everybody. If that was the case, guys from Gus Malzahn's recruiting classes wouldn't still be on this team right now.
Yeah, you need to take a sort of a clear-eyed view, right, of what it is and not
like,
be.
I know people. There are some people who wanted DJ Durkin.
Yeah.
And there are some people who wanted who thought that was the priority. That's just not how the things were lining up here.
Well, and I think that I know there are some folks who believe, okay, well, this team with different play calling on offense could have been a 10 or 11 win team in 2025. And to me, it's like you have to be like you cannot you can't be delusional about what you actually have here. Like more than half of the SEC has an active winning streak at Jordan-Hare Stadium, right? Like, I mean, it's maybe it's not a teardown, but clearly
something's got to change.
Things aren't working.
And I think that's what Auburn needed. I think Auburn needed something to point to and say, this could be different. It might not be. There's no guarantee in any of this with the coaching. There's no guarantee with this, but you are going to try to address your weaknesses and do something different. And I think that's a big thing. Dan, let's talk John Cohen in this. This was a really wild search at the very end in terms of the perception with what was going on with Cohen. Look, it was rumored heavily that it was going to be Sumrall and it was a done deal, and Florida came in and got him, right? And there are going to be questions from fans and, I mean, just in general, why Auburn was not able to lock down Sumrall when it felt like they were in the lead for him, why it ended up being Florida. All right. But then there was a lot of panic, I think, for people where it was like, oh, he's just going to have to default to DJ Durkin. Oh, it wasn't his number one guy like it was with Lane Kiffin, right? So it was the other guy. And it wasn't the other guy that nobody wanted, right? Like, that was the thing. It's like when they hired Hugh Freeze, there wasn't a ton of competition for him. Guess what? There was competition for Alex Golesh.
Oh,
Florida might have taken Sumrall and like jumped ahead of him in the pecking order. But let's be very clear: if Auburn wouldn't have nailed down Alex Golesh on Sunday morning, Ole Miss was coming hard for that one because he would have been a perfect fit for Ole Miss. Keeping in mind also, Dan, that like that's a perfect like plug and play for what their offense had been running. You know, there are Tennessee fans that are like, man, there's that guy going to Auburn. Like, we would love him maybe one day back here. He's going to Auburn. There
have been rumors linking him to Oklahoma State and Arkansas during this cycle.
When we were in Vegas, it was a done deal.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, no, it wasn't. You know why it wasn't a done deal? Because Auburn was potentially back in play. Florida was in play. You know, he talked to. I mean, Golesh was a candidate at Florida. Ole Miss was potentially in play. How about this, Dan? Penn State's in play. Kentucky would have been in play if
sounds like
I guess whatever's going on there. So again, it was different. I think there are Auburn fans that are frustrated that there was a coach that was seemingly promised and rumored to be the guy, and Auburn didn't get him. So obviously it looks like a failure in their eyes and a disappointment. And you know what? I understand some of that reaction to it. I understand some of that disappointment going on there. I also say though, it's like this wasn't just a default to an easy option after not getting your number one guy, because Golesh was somebody that, you know, I think Auburn ultimately had to do some fighting for.
There is a name that comes to mind for Kentucky, an alum who's got the Troy Trojans.
Yeah, Gerard Parker.
He's got the Troy Trojans in the Sun Belt championship.
How mad
game
do you
next
think
week.
Kentucky is that Sumrall finally they didn't make the move before?
No, and I don't know if you know what.
No, he wouldn't have done that. I mean, he would have taken Florida if he would have taken Florida over Auburn and Ole Miss. He's definitely taking him over Kentucky.
But when Jon Sumrall takes the Tulane job and Troy's looking for the next Jon Sumrall, they go get Parker. And I wonder if Kentucky's looking right now and thinking, all right, well, you can't go get one alum. Maybe there's another one that you could, and the fact that Troy's looking at, the fact that Troy's closing down the stretch like this could make him a more attractive option for
100%. They played really well. Really, the back 2/3 of the season was really well done.
And I have no inside information here, but that was the first thing I thought when I heard that Stoops was reportedly
good point.
on his way out, is that there is a Kentucky coach there's a Kentucky alum who's doing very well over the last couple of weeks in college football.
My perspective on this is I thought Sumrall would have been a great grade A hire for Auburn. I think he checked a ton of boxes, and I had felt that way from the beginning. He's at Florida, and Auburn was not able to get him over Florida. He's now at Florida, and so you go and get Golesh, and I think in very many ways there are a lot of similarities. It's obviously offense versus defense. I think you're going with a little bit more of an up-and-comer in the case when it comes to the background of Golesh as the head coach compared to Sumrall as a head coach. But you look at the track record on offense, and Auburn needs that. I think if you would have hired Sumrall, the big question would be, what do you do on offense? You don't have that question with Golesh. Like if you'd have hired Sumrall and kept Durkin, you'd have been doubling up on defense, which could have worked. But it's like there were going to be a big question about what you do on offense. Now it's like, especially if you retain Durkin, and we'll see. That remains to be seen. Like that's a decision that's going to have to be made internally. But if you do that, you could be set up pretty well on both sides of the ball.
And I understand the folks that wanted to see Auburn sort of pivot to the Pat Dye, Tommy Tuberville, Gene Chizik school of defensive coach who empowers an offensive coordinator to make these sort of moves. But I also think maybe Auburn feels these last couple of searches it is important enough to have the right guy as your offensive mastermind that you
especially if you can get high level quarterback play out
that you keep trying to find that guy, and it's fourth offensive minded coach in a row to get the Auburn job, but I think that's out of a desire to fix an offense that has been the problem for a big chunk of the last 10, 15 years.
I mean, let's just look right here on SP Plus. Teams that are expected to go to the college football playoff this year. Ohio State 5th in offense, Indiana 3rd in offense, Texas Tech 2nd in offense, Oregon 13th on offense, Notre Dame 7th on offense, Georgia 15th on offense, Ole Miss 9th on offense, Texas A&M 8th on offense. Miami might get in at their 18th. Vanderbilt might get in at their 4th. The only ones that are kind of the outliers here are Oklahoma, 52nd. That didn't work out, and they put a ton of effort into getting that offense fixed this year. And Alabama's 22nd. Your top candidate to make the playoff in the group of 5 right now is North Texas. They're the number 1 offense in the country. According to SP Plus. They're 68th on defense. A couple other things just off the top. Vandy's 33rd on defense right now. Texas A&M's 22nd on defense. The BYU and Utah are 21st and 22nd right now. So it's like top 10, top 15 offense is kind of the move, and it has been. It's traditionally, yes, you want to be awesome on defense, but you got the offense is almost the guaranteed thing you have to have, unless Oklahoma might be the outlier. But Michigan might have been the outlier a few years ago. More often than not, though, you want to be able to put up points.
And there used to be, if you go back 20 years, right? The list of the best offenses in college football were not necessarily the list of the best teams in college football. That's changed. It's harder than ever before. You think about when Nick Saban was losing to spread offenses and decided, okay, well, he's going to embrace that too. Because it's the way football is going. And it's never been harder to be a great college football program if you're not a great offense, right? That is the as you point, the list of playoff teams. There have been years where the 4 playoff teams were 4 of the 10 best passing offenses in major college football. That's the way this thing was going. And you can try to win by doing everything else right, but it's harder than ever to try to overcome. It's like not shooting threes in basketball. Like you can try to be a really good offense that doesn't hit from the outside. It's going to be really, really difficult facing some of these teams that you're facing and trying to keep up with them. And I think that's what passing has become in college football. Like if you can try to be a great team with a middling passing attack. You have to, but you have to be perfect at almost everything else, or it's not going to work. And for Auburn, trying to fix the passing offense,
trying to fix the thing that's ailed them the most,
trying to fix that is probably a better strategy than accepting that the passing offense can never be top tier, and you want to do everything else.
I mean, I'm just eyeballing it right here. Indiana and Vanderbilt are potentially going to the playoff, not because of now their defense. Indiana's defense is really, really good, but like it's what they've done on offense these last couple of years.
How about this? Show me a list of the worst teams in the SEC this year, and tell me where they are as passing offenses in the conference. And I suspect that the worst passing offenses are going to belong to the worst teams in the SEC.
Dead last in yards per attempt this season were Auburn and LSU. Next is Kentucky. Next is Florida.
Okay, those are 4 teams that fired their coach in the last few months.
And then it gets weird. And then it's like Missouri, Oklahoma, and Georgia.
Missouri had weird quarterback situation going on all year with the injuries and stuff. South Carolina not being on that list is a little bit surprising. I guess
South Carolina finished 6th.
Yeah, Sellers had
but if you must know, your top 4 passing attacks in the SEC this year. So the top quarter is Vandy, Ole Miss, Tennessee, and Texas A&M. And this is yards per attempt. Something to it. There might be something to it. And again, it's not quarterback whisper. He's going to have everything all fixed on that. It's just the tight end. I don't know. There's more grit and smash mouth and.
Oh no! I mean, he's running the ball. He's running the ball too. You might. I mean,
it's just there's more kind of grit to it, edge, than just look at me. I'm going out here and I'm going to put up 500 yards. Like I'm going to throw it all over the yard. They're going to do that, but there's also some balance to it as well, especially with what he's done with his quarterback. So, it's an exciting hire for a lot of people around here because it's different, and I think Auburn just needed that. You have more of a window. You have more of a runway. You get more of a honeymoon period if you go with something different and roll the dice and see if it works.
And Jon Sumrall, the reason, folks, I think one of the reasons, people said, well, he reminds you of coaches that had worked at Auburn in the past. And I would say Alex Golesh reminds me of coaches that are working in the SEC right now. Like Alex Golesh reminds me of Tennessee going from Pruitt to Heupel. Alex Golesh reminds me of Ole Miss going to Lane Kiffin. Like even Drinkwitz at Missouri to an extent. But this is reminiscent of some recent moves that have worked for their respective schools. Like it is, and several of them. So I would think that is, and I keep coming back to, this is a guy, and I know Auburn's not to Hugh Freeze's credit, Auburn's roster is not the mess that it was a couple of years ago when Hugh Freeze arrived, and it felt like you were going to have to put in a lot of work to have a Division I roster by the time the season started. It's not that kind of mess at Auburn, but it's a mess. I mean, you look at how many home games Auburn has lost in the last 3-4 seasons. It is difficult to categorize it as anything but a mess right now. And for Alex Golesh, he's worn a biohazard suit before. Like he's put on the PPE, and he's gone into the disaster zone, and he's cleaned it up. He did it at Tennessee. He did it at USF. Like it's something he has more than a lot of the other candidates Auburn could hire. It's something he has experience doing, like cleaning up a mess that has gotten out of hand. is something Alex Golesh can say he specializes in. And while it's not the mess it was a couple of years ago for Auburn, it's still something of a mess.
Yeah.
And I think having a coach, like if it were a coach who had only inherited successful programs and maintained them, you would say, does he know what he's getting himself into at Auburn right now? I look at Alex Golesh and I say, he knows what he's getting himself into right now.
Tennessee and especially USF.
Because he's stepped into situations that were as turbulent, maybe more so, because with Tennessee, you had the NCAA stuff swirling with Pruitt too. There was like, it wasn't just that they hadn't been winning. It was that there were questions about how many scholarships they were going to be able to have and stuff. And at least, at the moment, you're not saying that about Auburn, right? Like you're not saying, oh, well, there's questions about, there are investigations and things like that are public knowledge that people are like, oh, what's going to, like, that are clouding the future of the program. They stepped into that at Tennessee, and they were far better than anyone realized they were going to be immediately. And then you're right, he follows that up by stepping into a USF situation that had gradually gotten to the bottom of their conference, and he immediately makes them respectable immediately and has them in the championship hunt in year 3.
All right. That's the Golesh hire. By the way, I don't think we mentioned it this deep in the podcast. Born in Russia. Born in Moscow. Immigrated to the United States with his family at the fall of the Soviet Union. And
it's not Moscow, Idaho,
no,
right?
There's really, really, really cool stories out there about him and like what him and his family had to go through to make it in this country. And obviously now he's at now he's the head coach at one of the biggest college football programs in the country. That's as cool as it gets. Before we go, Dan, carousel stuff, this Lane Kiffin thing, I don't think we'll ever reach anything like this ever again.
The fact is, in the first year, we wondered about this when they expanded the playoff. And it's like, you look at the timeline here, and there are going to be some programs that want to poach coaches.
Real quick. The calendar is to blame for some of this. But most of it is Lane Kiffin.
Sure. Oh, yeah, it is.
This is a man who, they said all day yesterday that there was going to be a decision made, and they never did. And he held out, and he held out, and he held out. And they kept moving meetings back, and they kept moving stuff back, and there were announcements. Then he holds people hostage. There's the reports that the players had to go try to get him to talk on the way out the door.
I'll say that I know some people that are absolutely convinced that part of the reason that thing dragged into Saturday night is because
Penn State.
No.
Oh.
If Auburn wins the Iron Bowl and Kalen DeBoer's 9-3.
Oh, I said at Penn State. He's at Penn State.
He's at Penn State.
Yeah.
And then you've got an opening at Alabama.
Correct. No, I believe that. But I think it was a Brett McMurphy tweet where it was like somebody said he's trying to stand on the bridge and burn it at the same time.
Well, are you of the opinion that it is like you can't have a coach publicly, like he's leaving your school and staying in your conference.
Yeah, that's tough.
And he wants to coach you in the college football playoff. I can understand why that's a bridge too far for an athletic department, even if it seems like there's a lack of.
Yeah, no, it's a major conflict of interest. It is. And look, Lane Kiffin got fired at Alabama for trying to do 2 jobs at once. What makes you think he's going to handle it well here?
Michigan,
Ole Miss is like LSU's Ole Miss's second biggest rival.
Yeah, they're on the schedule. They're on the schedule next year.
Yeah,
they're going to Oxford next year. There was when Michigan won it all in men's basketball in the late 80s, they had a situation where the coach had announced that he was leaving for, I want to say it was Arizona State, and Bo Schembechler just fired him and said, all right, we'll go coach Arizona State, and the interim, one of your assistants is going to coach Michigan, and he coached him to a championship. And so there is some precedent, and that wasn't even a guy leaving for another job in the conference. That was a guy just staying in college football or college basketball and saying, I'm going to go somewhere else, and Michigan saying, well, we'll just go. and we'll win this championship without you. And so for Ole Miss, like the timing's a nightmare, but I see their point, right? That you can't have Lane Kiffin turning your college football playoff games into an advertisement for what he's going to do at his new school. Like
I agree. I mean, and to act like that wasn't an issue, like College Game Day was like, Ole Miss needs to do the right thing and let a fellow Jimmy Sexton client do whatever he wants.
And Kiffin in his farewell tweet sort of throws the AD. I mean, not sort of. He throws the AD under the bus and says, "I wanted to stay and coach the team in the college football playoff, and the team wanted me to stay and coach them in the college football playoff, and the mean old AD wouldn't let me do it." And it's like, come on, man.
It's a unique set of circumstances because I think if Lane Kiffin was going to go be the coach at Penn State, okay, no big deal. Less of a deal.
What's the Andy Daly meme? 1-900. Come on now.
Yeah. It's just that's wild. But to me, Dan, maybe the wildest move of the day is Pat Fitzgerald at Michigan State. What is that?
I mean,
do we not remember how badly it ended at Northwestern? And I'm not just talking about off the field.
There was, they were also not winning on the field anymore at Northwestern. No, that is, Michigan State has had a wild ride with these coaches, and there was talk that I remember reading in the same stories.
Pat Fitzgerald's last two seasons so they beat Auburn in the Citrus Bowl in 20.
Yep.
His last two seasons at Northwestern, they go 4-20. 2-16 in Big Ten play.
Yeah, I remember like in the talk that Jimbo Fisher wanted back in, there was also Pat Fitzgerald's positioning himself as an answer.
And every time anybody says that, I'm like, I'm sure he does.
Yeah, but I'm a little surprised that, especially with how it like for acknowledging what happened off the field too. The hazing stuff is terrible, but just the on-field result would make you think, shouldn't this guy have to like win his way back into the Big Ten through like a job in the MAC or something? Like, aren't there levels to this?
Yeah.
But instead, it's like not only is he back, it's a little bit like Hugh Freeze, but without the Liberty trip, right? Like it's like
he got a better job.
Not only is he back, he's in a better job
in the same conference. Wild. Kentucky just they're going to have to like return some basketball players for store credit to pay this buyout. Like, what's going on there?
I mean,
and who are they going to hire?
I mean, I think we've got a name for who they could potentially hire. Parker's a Kentucky alum doing well at a mid-major and would probably take
Will
the job.
Stein, I would also look at that one. Oregon offensive coordinator, used to be at Louisville.
And you know what? If Jimbo really wants to come back,
oh my God!
If Jimbo Fisher really wants back in and he thinks he can recruit,
it's like that would be really fun with Jimbo, where it'd be like, Jimbo, your last job here, we gave you no holds barred NIL, unlimited money. You got the unlimited money cheat code on the video game at Texas A&M. This time you're going to have to play on God mode, and you're going to have to be like, we're not giving you hardly any money.
If Jimbo Fisher is genuinely angry that people thought that all of his recruiting at A&M was because of NIL, he's got an opportunity to prove them wrong, right? You go to Kentucky and you recruit like a top 10 class at Kentucky every year, and people.
He was working for ACC Network yesterday, and like Kentucky's getting flattened by Louisville, and like he's just eviscerating Stoops, who used to be his DC.
Mm-hmm.
Wild stuff. This is where I quickly say, if Kentucky would have done the right thing and made the firing earlier, James Franklin was the hire there. But instead, you're letting him go to Virginia Tech because you're late to the party.
Think of how different. I know we've had this thought experiment before. He almost got the A&M job. Like if
that's my other thing too. Like that's my other thing too about like not getting your first option or like pitching a fit that things didn't go that way to start with. Like, yes, Auburn did not get their number one guy reportedly, But I mean, there's plenty of examples of that. The number 2 guy ended up being what he ended up with ended up being just fine.
And I think the greatest one in the last 25 years
Saban
is going to be Rich Rod being the first choice at Alabama, and that's sort of been memory hold by a lot of people.
And it's like, well, I guess we'll have to get Nick Saban.
Yeah, there was a very crazy day where like everyone was sure Rich Rodriguez was leaving West Virginia to be Shula's replacement. Dan,
what's Penn State doing? They got to the market before everyone else.
I don't know. I will suggest. I've always thought that Manny Diaz was maybe a player in this Penn State thing. He's a former Penn State defensive coordinator. He's winning at Duke. They could be in the playoff. Incredibly, they can't. Can Duke not?
No.
Are you sure there can't be upsets on conference championships?
I'm like very sure. Because it's like the top 5 conference champions get in, and it's like SEC, Big 10, Big 12.
I believe Troy would have to beat JMU among some other things that would need to happen on conference championship Saturday. I think there is a lock Duke could pick to get into the college football playoff as the ACC champion. Even ignoring that, I think Penn State could do a lot worse than Manny Diaz.
It would have to be Troy over JMU. Right?
Among some others. But it's like I think
because the American's going to have their team in.
Right. But I think that's one that's one name I would mention.
Also, by the way, the takes of the ACC should change their rules because they're not letting Miami be in the conference title game. No. We can't just bend the rules just to make just to appease the made-for-television product. No, we can't. This isn't professional wrestling.
I do not know.
Although it kind of felt like it with Lane Kiffin.
And the playoff selections have sometimes felt professional wrestling adjacent.
Oh, you saw the thing today where it's like, well, Ole Miss doesn't have its coach. Don't know if we need to put them in the playoff. And
Texas,
it's like they're 11-1.
Texas became better than Ole Miss when Lane Kiffin left, or something like that. Like 9-3 Texas suddenly becomes better than this Ole Miss team. But no, I would. I don't know the answer to the Penn State thing. I mean, I think that there are a couple of guys where it's like I could see them winning at Penn State, and Manny Diaz is a decent example because like you see what he's done at Duke. The Miami thing was kind of cut short because Cristobal became available. He has experience in State College as a DC.
They were swinging for DeBoer, man.
Yeah,
They legit were. That was all the smoke coming out of State College.
Sure. And I think that when you think about how many close games Alabama played this year, including the Iron Bowl, it's like if they weren't going to make the playoff at 9-3 after that Florida State loss, maybe DeBoer was maybe he was in the picture for Penn State instead. But now, I mean,
real quick,
who knows when Alabama season ends?
He's been out west. Thought he was going to be a bigger player at Florida. Jetfish.
Yeah, Florida grad.
But like Jetfish, like was it Michigan? Was it the Patriots? Like so, it's like he's been everywhere.
And some's going to nab JMU's coach, right? I know there's reports that
Bob Chesney makes a lot of sense.
And I know there are reports that he's UCLA's first choice. I think
I would go to Penn State over UCLA.
Yes. Oh, yes, absolutely. You play
considering Penn State knows where their football stadium is.
Yeah, Penn State has an on-campus stadium, and it's UCLA's is like an hour and a half away depending on traffic. But like I think that I mean but there's not an obvious he makes a ton of sense.
And I'm interested to see where it's like the chain reaction goes. Like Jim Mora leaving UConn for Colorado State is fun, but like what else are you gonna do? Apparently Coastal Carolina's made a move. There's gonna be other ones. And I'll tell you real quick before we go. If you're looking for an up-and-coming coach, and I know it's been quick, and I know they got screwed out of their conference title game because of like metrics and all that, Jason Eck did a heck of a job in New Mexico this year. That New Mexico team is fun, and I think he should get a move up here in the near future. Oregon State hiring Alabama's wide receiver coach is also very, very interesting. It looked like it was going to be Kane Womack at Arkansas too, and then Ryan Silverfield. People are not happy about that. Because apparently Memphis was getting a little tired. Memphis fans, I would say, were getting tired of Silverfield there. So boy, howdy, this is a carousel and a half right now.
Yeah, Kane Womack played at Arkansas for Gus Malzahn. He was a fullback on that team. He was Peyton Hillis's backup in 2006.
So he was the backup Madden cover.
He was the. Well, I mean, so that back that backfield had Darren McFadden and Felix Jones and Peyton Hillis and a guy who is the defensive coordinator at Alabama right now, also playing. Which, by the way, I know I've said this before.
That would be like, what, is that Matt Jones?
It made
a quarterback. Who's the quarterback?
No, it would have been Mitch Mustaine.
Mustaine.
Yeah, it would have been Mustaine and maybe Casey Dick. I think would have been in that department. But it made the Alabama Florida State game even more puzzling in week one because Alabama's defensive coordinator
looked like he had never seen a Gus Malzahn offense before.
He played for him in college.
Yeah.
So
wow. All right. Well, that's going to wrap it up. We got a lot coming. We've got press conference on Monday, basketball on Wednesday, NC State. Will Wade and the gang coming to town. A kind of ticked off NC State team, I would imagine. They lost 2 this past weekend in Maui, or this past week in Maui. Got the Arizona game later this week, and then obviously the early days of the Alex Golesh tenure at Auburn for Auburn football. So we'll have plenty of stuff coming. Oh, by the way, we've got more Golesh stuff here in the future. You'll hear this podcast tomorrow. I'm hoping my brother, who collaborates with me on a lot of the basketball stuff we do at the website, has done a film room on Tahad Pettiford from that St. John's game. Some really, really good stuff there. We're going to try to put that out on Tuesday amidst all the football stuff as well. So plenty of football, plenty of basketball. I'm going to Arizona this weekend. It's going to be a lot of fun.
I'm going to be watching the NC State game on the way home from Farmville, Virginia, Justin, because the Troy Trojans are going to Longwood on Wednesday, playing a Wednesday morning game. You got a field trip day scheduled for our trip to Farmville. If you're wondering how you get to Farmville, by the way, I believe you can fly into Charlottesville and make a short drive, or you can fly into Richmond and make a slightly longer drive. I've never been to Farmville, and I'm looking forward to seeing what Longwood's all about. The Lancers of Longwood, who have been a D1 program for about 20 years or so. Big South Conference team. So
right.
That's after. Yeah, I mean, nice couple of wins for Troy. Florida Gulf Coast is consistently one of the best mid majors in women's college basketball. They've won 120 plus games the last 4 years, and they're always picked to win the ASUN. Troy led the whole game, held off a buzzer beater at the end. That's a really nice win for Coach.
And while we're talking about women's hoops, first loss for against an unbeaten Oregon team for the Auburn women. So a really good start to the season, though, and I think just keep an eye on that bunch. Keep an eye on that bunch moving forward. If
you get the chance to see Coach Larry and the Auburn women in person, get
ready for a team that just fights like heck, especially on the defensive end.
Yeah,
they are not in the upper echelon. They're going to be towards the bottom in terms of talent in the SEC in this year one for him, but. That team grinds.
Yeah, he's gonna squeeze every drop out of the team he has. That's sort of what he did at Norfolk to be as successful as he was, and so I don't think it's all that shocking that's the style, and I think the hope is that every year you're gonna have players that are more comfortable with his style and more familiar with what he expects. But yeah, they are they're just, I mean, they are looking to outwork you. And it's I want to see what happens, because there are some SEC teams this year that may not want to play that kind of may not want to play that kind of game and could eventually melt under that kind of pressure.
Speaking of melt, happy holidays, everyone. By the time this comes out, it's December, so we're already in it, and we're gonna run the deal again as usual, folks.
Ooh.
Here it is, real easy. Gonna make it super, super, super easy on you guys. We're gonna knock off our sale price. We'll have a sale going on here during the holidays. We'll go $5 a month or $50 a year instead of the usual $6 or $60. So you get that. But on top of that, if you give a gift subscription to the Observer, and you are an Observer subscriber, email me with a receipt. We'll put some free time on your account for giving the gifts. We do this every year. We're going to do it once again. So, yes, we're going to run that deal. It's just $5 a month or $50 a year. We're going to do that. We're going to run that now until Christmas Day. So it'll be 25 days of the Observer. And, that'll be the way to get in here. It's a great time to join. So if you're not a subscriber and want to buy a subscription for yourself, perfect time to jump on board. If you want to buy a gift subscription for others, perfect time to do that as well, because we're running a little bit of a discount right now.
I said this before I worked here. I will say it now. If you have an Auburn fan in your life who is difficult to shop for, especially someone who likes to follow Auburn football, Auburn men's basketball, a subscription to the Observer is a really cool, really thoughtful gift for just about anybody who cares about the stuff that we talk about. And also the Observer promise: 0% AI, 0% funded by sports books. More important than ever before that we throw it out there. Justin, do we have time for a little nonsense? I know we've gone long.
Sure.
All right. So since you mentioned,
I haven't slept.
Since it's the holiday season, I want to throw this one out there. It's not a top 4. This is just a 1. So Ted Turner, when he owned cable channels, our guy Ted Turner, when he owned cable channels, he liked to show. I mean, look, the tradition of A Christmas Story on TBS for 24 hours. That was one of Ted Turner's favorite movies growing up, and he decided, because he owned the channel, he said, "You know what we're going to do is we're going to show this movie. What is it? They show it 12 times in a row. I think it fits a 2-hour programming window. They show it 12 times in a row, and that's their day of programming. If you owned a cable channel during the holiday season, what movie would you show for 24 hours straight on your channel?"
National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
It's a good answer.
I think that's one you could play consistently, and you'll find people to tune into it.
You'd have to be careful with mine during the daylight hours, but I'm going Eyes Wide Shut. Give me Eyes Wide Shut.